You could be the most sought-after wolf in the forest and still think you're just another old tree. Because while you pause, they're already noticing you. Not for what you appear to be, but for what you exude. The charm of an older man isn't loud. It lingers subtly in the air, in the way you step into a room or how you never beg for attention. Yet so many men in their 40s, 50s, even 60s still believe their prime has passed. That younger women only care about youth, muscles, emojis, and filters. That's false. What most of them are quietly searching for is exactly what you've spent years developing, yet haven't learned to wield fully. Today, I'm going to reveal 7 invisible signs that show you are far more attractive than you realize. And when you reach the last one, you won't just understand it, you'll feel it. I'm Celia, and this is your house of wisdom. Stay until the end, because after this, your reflection in the mirror will feel different. Have you ever noticed how a room seems quieter when you enter, but you aren't sure if it's out of respect or just indifference? Have you felt that fleeting glance from a younger woman, the one that lasts only a couple of seconds, yet leaves something suspended in the air, and later you wonder if it was real or just in your head? It wasn't in your head. The problem is you don't recognize it, not because it's not happening, but because nobody ever taught you to read the language of masculine mystery. And that language, my friend, you already speak without even realizing it. You're just not using it fully. You've reached the first point of this video, and it's about your silence and how it fascinates them. In a world where young men don't know how to be quiet, where everything is shouted on social media, where every feeling is displayed like cheap merchandise, you possess something rare: presence, calm, silence, the ability to listen without interrupting, to observe without filling space with empty words. And even if you think that's a weakness, a sign that you're losing your social edge, it's actually your greatest advantage. Because silence isn't emptiness, it's authority, it's pause, it's control. And a young woman notices it. That is emotional power. Imagine this: a group of young men at a table, talking loudly, laughing, waving their hands, competing for attention like restless puppies. Then a man in his 50s walks in, calm and unhurried. He sits down. He doesn't interrupt. He simply observes. Within minutes, one of them is already intrigued by him. Why? Because he isn't asking for attention. He's drawing it in. Because he isn't oversharing. Because he isn't competing. Because he owns the moment and the room. Silence, when it comes from an older man with stories, isn't passivity. It's a statement. And a young woman used to guys who crumble over an Instagram like feels shaken by a man who doesn't need to prove anything because he has already lived, already lost, already rebuilt himself. But you don't see it yet because you're still trapped in the belief that being attractive means talking more, doing more, moving more. You've been sold the idea that noise equals power, when in truth, real power doesn't interrupt. It simply occupies space. You carry it in your calm gaze, in the pause before you speak, in the way you walk without hurry. That energy disarms, confuses, and excites them. A young woman may receive 1,000 compliments in a single day, yet she'll spend the evening thinking about the one man who saw her and stayed silent. This is where you return to your center, where you stop competing for likes and realize what you radiate isn't posted, it's felt. When you learn to inhabit your silence, to resist filling it with explanations, to stop apologizing for your age or calm demeanor, you become a man who doesn't just attract, he commands. The woman who truly matters isn't after noise. She seeks presence. And if you can hold your silence without fear, she won't flee. She'll come closer because she senses she's facing a man, not a boy pretending to be one. that contained silent energy, which a young woman can feel even if you don't display it, would mean nothing if you crumbled at a smile, a compliment, or a flirtatious look. Real mystery isn't only about quiet, it's about not reacting. And that brings us to the second point. You aren't dazzled, and that excites them. Many men, especially younger ones, lose composure in front of an attractive woman. Their voice falters, their posture changes, they laugh at things they don't even understand. They become compliant, not out of love, but because they are hypnotized. When a woman senses that, when she realizes her mere presence unsettles you, she stops respecting you, even if she smiles. True feminine desire comes not from worry, but from challenge. You, as an older man, hold the ability and responsibility not to be captivated. Psychology is clear. Whatever you idealize controls you. If you put a younger woman on a pedestal just because she's attractive, you relinquish the power you've built over the years. A man who is dazzled shows he hasn't healed his inner void and still seeks validation from female approval, but you've moved past that. You've lived enough to know a woman can be beautiful and still not be your center. She can attract you and still not deserve you. That is the difference between impulsive desire and selective desire. And that difference not only strengthens you, it amplifies your appeal. Stoics called it controlled indifference, not reacting to outer shine, but evaluating with depth, never giving away your soul for a body or your dignity for a kiss. The man who is dazzled might be useful, but will never be irresistible. When a woman sees that you can appreciate her beauty without losing your center, without fumbling, without trying to win her over, something shifts. She lowers her guard because she is used to provoking reactions, not meeting men who can observe her without surrendering. And even if she doesn't admit it, that disarms her, excites her, intrigues her, because you are showing her something new, a man who desires but does not depend. If you haven't felt this yet, it's not because you lack what it takes. It's because you still think you must impress, talk more, do more, prove more. The strongest, rarest form of masculine appeal today is not to act like a fan, but to look at a beautiful woman the way you'd look at a landscape, appreciate it, value it, but not lose control. That is your power, not being dazzled, needing no validation, staying rooted while admiring her. When you do this, the dynamic flips. She seeks your attention. She feels compelled to win you over because you've silently shown that you are no longer chasing. You are choosing, and that shakes her, breaks her usual pattern, and makes you impossible to ignore. So far, we've explored two invisible forces, the silence that intrigues and the steadiness that unsettles. But the third is even more potent because it commands respect and desire. This is where things truly shift. You carry scars, and that captivates them. Not just visible ones, the ones you narrate in stories, but the deeper ones etched in your character, your eyes, in your ability to remain grounded while everything around you burns. A young woman may initially be drawn to looks or smiles, but she becomes hooked on a man who has survived, fallen, lost, and known the depths, and returned. That man doesn't theorize about life. He has lived it. He has faced it. And it shows, even if he never speaks, in how he listens, in how he doesn't react to every provocation. Those emotional scars carried with dignity set you apart. You are not a new product. You are a rebuilt masterpiece. And whether you believe it or not, that carries undeniable magnetism. Psychology has a clear but profound explanation for this. The female brain, especially between ages 25 and 35, is consciously or unconsciously looking for signs of emotional maturity. One of the clearest signs is resilience, the ability to go through fire and not come out burned but forged. When you speak calmly about your failures, when you're not ashamed of your divorces, losses, mistakes, when you don't hide your experiences but turn them into clarity, you become something most men aren't: an emotional rock. Not because you don't feel, but because you no longer shake. Here's a practical strategy you can start using today. Stop sugarcoating your past. Stop listing only your wins. Stop pretending everything has been perfect. Start speaking truthfully, not with drama, but with depth. When an intimate moment comes, instead of telling shallow stories, lower your tone and share what pain taught you, what you learned about yourself when you were broken. Don't speak to impress. Speak to reveal your core, to show that who you are today didn't happen by chance. It was built. Let me give you a clear example. You're on a date with a younger woman. She asks why you never remarried. You could dodge it, you could joke, or you could say, because once I chose out of fear of being alone, and now I prefer dignified solitude over empty company. That sentence, said with calm conviction, doesn't make you vulnerable. It makes you respectable because you're no longer selling an image. You're showing yourself as a man who has learned. And in a world full of recycled speeches and Instagram captions, that feels like a breath of raw authenticity. Before we go further, if this is resonating with you, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel right now. I want to know where you're watching from, and if you're willing, drop a single sentence in the comments. My scars made me a man. There are still lessons coming that will elevate your clarity, and trust me, the last one will be the most powerful. The hardest part about having scars isn't getting them. It's learning not to justify them. Many men, after going through pain, develop a type of emotional overprotection that makes them tolerate things they would have never accepted before. They cling to the bare minimum, settle for crumbs, confuse serenity with resignation. That, my friend, is the quiet first step toward an emotionally lifeless life. Now that you understand the power of well-arranged wounds, it's time to face the next challenge. You don't chase, you choose. Many mature men get lost here without realizing it. The most destructive trap for a man reclaiming his life, his desire, and his center is acting like he needs to be chosen, like he has to earn someone's love, like he has to prove he's worthy of attention. It's a sophisticated form of self-abandonment because it makes you an emotional beggar. Even if you have money, experience, wisdom, and presence, you might not even notice you're chasing emotionally. You accept draining conversations, wait for replies that never come, tolerate disrespect just to buy time. That's not love. That's lack disguised as patience. This mistake creeps in subtly, especially after a painful breakup. Your mind convinces you that this time you need to do better. That's the charm of self-awareness when the nice guy shows up, the one who listens, waits, doesn't impose, doesn't demand. But behind that understanding man is someone who lost his core, who no longer asks, does she deserve me? Instead, he wonders, how can I make her like me? That question destroys you inside because the man who lives to be chosen stops choosing. He stops being the author. He becomes the supporting actor in his own story. The consequences are brutal. You become functional but emotionally hollow. You work, pay bills, show up, but you no longer lead your life. You no longer set the pace. You no longer spark anything. You just wait. For a woman, especially a younger one, that's fatal. Even if she respects you, values you, she won't desire you. Desire comes from mystery and leadership, from the ability to say, I'm not here to beg, I'm here to choose. If you can't see that, I'll keep walking. That sentence is something a mature man needs to internalize. Understanding this changes everything. When you stop chasing and start choosing, you reclaim your power, your clarity. You stop accepting any energy, stop reacting to every signal, stop falling into the trap of needing to be liked. You become selective, and that is irresistible because a young woman may attract many, but she only stays with the one who chooses, not because he needs her, but because he sees her. If she doesn't see him back, he doesn't kneel. He walks away, knowing his worth isn't in being picked, but in knowing he walks. He has the right and duty to choose. If you've made it this far, it's because something inside you has started to wake up. You're no longer hearing this as advice. You're seeing it as a brutal mirror, showing everything you've let slip by and what you still have the power to reclaim. But for that to happen, you need to face one of the most intense and invisible signals. Your gaze doesn't caress, it strips. It's not about how you look at her, but from where you look. A woman can feel without words, whether you watch her with hunger or power, whether your gaze asks for something or declares that you know what you can spark without touching her. Many older men, after years of rejection or indifference, develop soft, submissive visual energy, almost asking permission. A young woman senses it instantly. She feels your gaze no longer comes from desire, but from fear. Fear of not being enough, fear of making her uncomfortable, fear of being ignored. Feminine desire doesn't respond to fear. It responds to firmness, certainty, tension that needs no explanation. When a man looks with insecurity, doubt, or hidden need, he becomes invisible. Even if he stands next to her, says all the right words, his energy doesn't penetrate. It just circles, trying to be liked. The man who tries to be liked loses respect. Not because she's cruel, but because attraction cannot survive where emotional submission exists. The consequences are devastating. You end up in relationships where she cares, supports, appreciates you, but doesn't desire you. You become her comfort, her emotional safety, her support system, but no longer her man. If you don't fix it, you start believing that's the best you can get. You settle. You tell yourself desire dies with age. That passion is only for the young. That's a lie. It's not desire that dies. It's your ability to inhabit it with presence, emotional tension, and a steady gaze. When that fades, so do you. Turning this around isn't about techniques, lines, or psychological games. It's about presence, reclaiming energy you never truly lost, only buried under fear, guilt, or routine. It's not about looking aggressive. It's about looking with clarity, holding her gaze without looking away, seeing without asking permission, showing without words that you're not there to please. You're there to be already whole. The mindset is simple. If she can't hold my gaze, she's not ready for my presence. No arrogance, no games, no performance, just steadiness. That steadiness is built in silence, in your breath, in your walk, in how you stand without flinching. The gaze of a man who stepped back into his power doesn't ask. It strips because he has chosen himself. In a world full of broken men and women drowning in empty attention, this gaze feels like a force that can't be ignored, a force that transforms from eyes to skin. If you've learned to hold your gaze without fear, reclaimed that masculine tension that never begs, then you are already closer to regaining what you lost, your inner power. But there's something deeper, something that can shut you down if ignored, because clarity in your gaze isn't enough. You also need to stop selling the future, stop promising stories, stop dressing up your presence with fancy words. This brings us to the sixth point of this video. You don't promise a future, you deliver intensity. Picture this: you're with a younger woman. She looks at you with admiration, restrained desire, that mix of curiosity and teasing that only happens when something is sparking in the air. And instead of owning the moment like a man, you interrupt it with a clumsy remark. We should do this more often. Or imagine a trip together, and right there, without realizing it, you lost the moment because you started selling tomorrow instead of holding the now. You didn't mean harm. You did it thinking that showing stability equals showing connection, but it doesn't. You only revealed anxiety, and for a woman craving intensity, it felt like a cold shower. Many mature men make this mistake without noticing. They come from broken relationships, fractured homes, failed promises, and when they feel even a small connection, they try to turn it into structure, as if having a plan guarantees desire. But desire can't be planned, it's felt, it's experienced. And when you fill the present with future expectations instead of inhabiting it fully, you're running. You're trying to control something that only comes alive when you're completely present. No distractions, no agendas. A young woman doesn't need you to promise her stability on the first meeting. She isn't looking for vows before she even knows who you are. What excites her, draws her in, keeps her thinking about you is your ability to fully inhabit the moment. For every conversation with you to carry weight, for every glance to feel like contained fire, for your silence not to create doubt but gravity. And that isn't achieved by talking about the future. It happens when you breathe fully into the present, knowing you don't need to give anything more than who you already are. Men who don't grasp this become providers of stability, but not generators of desire. They offer emotional safety, but don't spark imagination. They end up in functional relationships, neat, orderly, polite, but cold relationships where there's no betrayal, but no heat either, where everything is in place, yet nothing truly resonates. Later, they wonder why she pulled back, why she stopped reaching out, why she doesn't touch them with the same passion. It wasn't because you failed as a partner. It was because you failed as a living man, as presence, as intensity, because you were safe but forgettable. The image is simple but powerful. Imagine she's in front of you. The air is charged. The moment demands something. Instead of rushing her into an imagined tomorrow, you choose to own the now, not with words, but with energy, a steady gaze, a perfect pause, a silence that doesn't make her uncomfortable but ignites her, because you understand that real impact doesn't lie in what you promise. It lies in what you provoke. And if you can provoke without begging, without selling, without jumping ahead in the story, then you're no longer just another man. You're the one her body remembers. So stop chasing guarantees. Stop planning futures. Stop building castles before you create tension. A man who lives fully in the now doesn't need to offer anything else. He's already giving it all, his intensity, his fire, his truth. And when delivered without anxiety, it's unforgettable. If you understand that it's not about promising but provoking, then you're already close to becoming the kind of man who doesn't need to explain himself. A man who doesn't hide behind stability for acceptance because he knows his intensity is more than enough. But there's one final frontier, an invisible line separating those who have it all from those who lose it without knowing why. And that line isn't in what you do, it's in what you don't do when you know you should. We've reached the seventh and final point of this video. Your detachment is both poison and antidote. Do you know what shakes a young woman most, especially one used to attention? A man who doesn't need her, who desires her, admires her, connects deeply, but doesn't rely on her presence to feel complete. That throws her off because she isn't facing a fan, she's facing an equal. That kind of detachment, when real, is your most untamed power. It isn't coldness or indifference, it's presence with freedom. It's knowing that if she walks away, you're still yourself, unshaken, unapologetic, unbroken. But you can't fake this. If detachment is a tactic to manipulate, she will feel it, and it loses all power. True detachment comes from having lost before, from giving everything in relationships and still not being enough, from understanding through pain that the only way not to betray yourself again is to choose without need, to love without dependence, to care deeply but be ready to walk because no one respects the man who stays where he isn't wanted. No one desires someone who can't leave. If you don't learn to walk away at the right time, you become the useful, dependable, nice guy who is emotionally invisible. Most men don't get this. They think staying is virtue, waiting is maturity, enduring is love. Meanwhile, they lose respect, attraction, fire. No one desires a man who gives himself away without boundaries. Without lines, you're not loving, you're replaceable. To a young woman exploring her power, that's an open invitation to walk over you without guilt. Not because she's cruel, but because you never showed strength to set a limit, to say, I'm here because I want to be, not because I need to be. When you say that calmly, with conviction and a steady gaze, everything shifts. This is the moment of truth. You can't say you didn't know. You can't blame your age, your ex, your past. Today, you saw the signs. Today, you understand that power isn't being younger, charming, or available. Power is choosing, looking with fire, speaking little, standing firm, leaving when necessary, not chasing, living your story without asking permission. If after this you keep acting like the man who begs, bends, waits, then you're not a victim. You're a partner in your own emotional disappearance. Detachment, when born from clarity, doesn't isolate, it frees. It's the deepest self-respect, the silent roar of a man unafraid of being alone because he won't abandon himself again. That energy is poison to weak relationships and medicine for your soul. It cleans, strengthens, brings you back, because the only woman worth having seeks a man who chooses himself first, who isn't desperate for love, who already loves himself enough not to give himself where he won't be honored. If you reach this point, it isn't curiosity. It's because you can no longer tolerate being invisible. You know deep down you weren't born to wait, but to decide. I didn't come here to comfort you. I came to show without filters that being an older man isn't a sentence. It's an advantage if you know how to use it. But that depends on you, how you walk, how you look, what you tolerate, what you refuse to compromise. Not everyone can handle this truth. Not everyone has the strength to face themselves without excuses. But you made it here, and that already sets you apart. Here, we don't talk about self-esteem with quotes. We talk about becoming men again, the kind who don't explain, don't beg, don't dilute themselves to be liked. If this video spoke to something in you, leave one sentence in the comments. I don't sell myself anymore. And tell me where in the world you're watching from, because I want to see where the men are who reclaim their power I'm Celia, and this is your House of Wisdom. This channel isn't here to entertain, it's here to shake, to return tools stripped by the modern world so you can stop being just functional and start being free. Here, we build a community of men who don't lie to themselves, who don't crawl, who no longer want to be liked. If you feel like one of them, subscribe, join. Share this video with that friend who doesn't realize how much power he risks losing by fearing to wake up. Don't go yet. Pick one of the two videos on your screen because this conversation isn't over. It's just starting, and what you see there could change how you move through the world even more. Because when a man sees himself differently, everything around him shifts.